Good afternoon. I'm Governor Ron DeSantis. I apologize for being late. We had some plane trouble today. I have issued an executive order suspending Scott Israel as the Sheriff of Broward County. And I have appointed Gregory Tony as the new Sheriff of Broward County. Now I'm going to have a few things to say, but before I do that, I wanted to give some of the Parkland families the opportunity to come up. So we'll start with Andy Pollock.
Hey, how's everybody doing out there? Sorry the governor was a little late, but we've been waiting 9 months for this day, right? I love you all too. So next I'm going to introduce my good friend Max. He lost his son Alex, okay, and we've been together ever since February 14th. So Max is going to come out here, and he's worked so hard. You don't see a lot of what the families do because it doesn't really make it into the media. But Max has been behind the scenes working with senators and at a federal level for school safety throughout the country. So Max.
Thank you very much. My name is Max Schachter. 2018 was the worst year of my life. My little boy Alex is no longer here to be with his mommy, who took care of him and loved him more than anything, because he was murdered at Marjory Stoneman Douglas on Valentine's Day 2018. I'm here today to thank Governor DeSantis for changing the leadership of the Broward Sheriff's Office. He realizes that public safety is the most important thing, and the cultural corrections are necessary to protect the citizens before the next mass casualty event happens in Broward County. My participation on the commission investigating the Marjory Stoneman Douglas massacre revealed the facts that led up to the brutal slaughter of Alex and 16 other innocent victims. During the last 8 months, we learned about the failed policies of the Broward County School Board Superintendent Robert Runcie and the horrible response of the Broward Sheriff's Office under the leadership of Sheriff Scott Israel. The MSD Commission found fault with 9 different deputies' actions. Their actions, along with Scott Israel's failed and inadequate policies, procedures, and training, has made Broward County less safe. In 2017 and last year, we had mass casualty incidents, and in both of them, we had issues with command and control and training. Fixing these issues as soon as possible is of the utmost importance to the governor and myself. I know that incoming Sheriff Gregory Tony's vast active shooter experience and knowledge will enable him to make the necessary changes so that Broward Sheriff's Office is the shining example of law enforcement that all citizens want and believe they can be. Thank you.
Next, I'm going to introduce another commissioner from the Marjory Stoneman Douglas Safety Commission. Ryan is another person that's been working nonstop since February 14th, and a lot of you don't see it, but Ryan actually was very instrumental in getting that Senate Bill 7026 passed. And me and Ryan share a special bond, and I'm going to introduce Ryan. Ryan lost his daughter Elena on the first floor that day in February.
Yay, Ryan!
I'll keep my remarks brief, because today is about a new chapter for Broward County. And I want to look forward rather than looking back. Governor DeSantis, I want to thank you for your bold leadership. This has been quite a week on a number of fronts, and this is an example and demonstration of the leadership we need here in Broward County. So I thank Governor DeSantis for keeping his campaign promise.
Yes.
Sheriff Tony, I love the way that sounds. I'm glad you're here. And I want you to know that although the events that happened in Parkland on February 14th were likely the reason you're the sheriff today is because of those and the findings of the MSD Commission and the bold action of our governor. But Sheriff, you will be the sheriff for the entire Broward community. And that's a big responsibility, and it's one I hope that you will take seriously. You are our sheriff, and we are here to support you and make sure you are successful. We're here because of the failures of the past, but today is a new day. Today is a new chapter. I'm excited. We have, I promised I wasn't going to say it, but I'm going to do it. There's a new sheriff in town. Thank you.
How's everyone doing today? I just want to come up here and thank the governor. He made promises and he kept the promises. And now the people of Broward County thank him. But not only do we thank him, the 17 angels who were let down from the Broward Sheriff thank him as well. Now, we all have to support the new Sheriff, Gregory Toney, and we will start today. Thank you, guys.
On February 14th, my daughter died on the 3rd floor of MSD, running down the hallway from an active shooter. One more second and she makes it into the stairwell. She needed one more second. If anybody wants to know what failure means and lack of response, my daughter would have lived if somebody could have just given her one more second. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Governor, thank you for taking this action. I want to keep my brief comments actually on our new sheriff, because I do believe we've got the right guy. I have several really terrific friends in Coral Springs Police who have spent a lot of years working with our new sheriff. They've served alongside, they've trained with him, they've been trained by him. And every single one of them says, this is the right man to lead this agency with character, with integrity, and with an ability that will help to turn around what really was a crisis situation. So I have a hard time with people who have two first names. I'm going to always say, so I'm just going to think of you as GT. But Sheriff, welcome aboard.
Good afternoon. My name's Tony Montalto. My daughter Gina was a victim also on February 14th at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. Today I'm out here to represent a group of all our families. Stand with Parkland, the National Association of Families for Safe Schools. We applaud Governor DeSantis for taking action based on the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Commission report. The leaders of the dedicated men and women in law enforcement must ensure that their policies put the safety of our state's children first. We hope that the Florida legislature, in conjunction with the governor, are able to act on more of the Commission's recommendations and build on the important first steps that were passed with the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act. That law demonstrated that our state was making positive change, addressing the security of school campuses, working on better mental health programs, and promoting responsible firearms ownership. The safety of our state students and staff should continue to be a place where all parties can come together and find the compromises needed to take action. On behalf of all our families who lost someone that day, the 14 wonderful students, the 3 brave staff members, we thank the governor for taking this action.
Good afternoon. My name is Debbie Hickson. My husband, Chris Hickson, was one of the adults killed in the shooting. He is one of the adults that ran in that building immediately as soon as he heard something was going on. I look forward to a sheriff who trains his staff members and his law enforcement to do just that, to run in and to protect the way that they promised they would do. So thank you, Governor DeSantis, for taking action to be sure that the sheriff that runs this county trains his officers the way they should be. Thank you.
The first time I met Ron DeSantis was at the Lincoln Day dinner in Fort Lauderdale. He talked about accountability for what happened at Marjory Stoneman Douglas and safety for our kids. Those of you that know me, that word accountability haunts me day in and day out. Accountability. I never did anything political before my daughter was murdered at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, but I decided if Ron was for accountability, I was going to be for him. You don't always know with politicians, but today proves that Ron DeSantis is a man of his word. Our community and our kids will be much safer now that Sheriff Israel is out of office. Sheriff Israel said he judged his success by how many kids he kept out of jail. When BSO never arrested 1958, despite 45 calls to his house, they were following Israel's policies. Israel also changed the active shooter policy from the deputy shall go in to the deputies may go in. When 8 BSO deputies listened to shots fired in the school and stayed outside, they were following Sheriff Israel's policies. And everyone that knows me out there that's here in Broward knows that I'm not finished today. There's one more leader that needs to be held accountable in order for our kids to be safe at the schools. And that's Broward School Board Superintendent Runcie. I'm not going to stop until the kids in Broward are safe. I want to thank Governor DeSantis for bringing accountability to Broward County, and it means a lot to all our families and our community. Thank you, Governor.
Well, I want to thank everybody for those comments. Now, the neglect of duty and the incompetence that was connected to the massacre at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School has been well documented, and I have no interest in dancing on Scott Israel's political grave. Just suffice it to say that the massacre might never have happened had Broward had better leadership in the Sheriff's Department. The Parkland families, the people of Broward, and the broader Florida community want accountability, but I think just as important or more important, they want the problems fixed going forward. And in their own ways, these Parkland families have all worked hard so that others won't have to experience the horrors of losing a child. As governor, I don't want to leave it to the future to do what we can do today. And so appointing Sergeant Gregory Toney as the new sheriff of Broward, I believe, is the way to look forward, to bring leadership, competence, and accountability to the department. You'll get to know the new sheriff, but he has a great story. He left the streets of Philadelphia to pack up to Florida because he had dreams for playing football at Florida State. People said, oh, you can't do it, you're too small to be a fullback, and guess what? He did it. He earned a spot on legendary coach Bobby Bowden's Florida State teams, and they ain't the Florida State that you just saw this year. They were a juggernaut back then. He served with distinction at the Coral Springs Police Department, earning the Meritorious Service Award for prudent act of heroism. His expertise are in things like active shooters, defending schools. You couldn't have anyone that would be more tailor-made for this position. And on the same day that I pardoned the Groveland Four, Greg Toney will be the first black sheriff in the history of Broward County. but more important than that will be the content of his character, somebody who can lead with principles, with conviction, and with integrity. Now, fixing the problems that plague the leadership at the Broward Sheriff's Department won't happen overnight. Greg Toney's appointment is not the end, nor even the beginning of the end, but perhaps it will be the end of the beginning of the efforts for accountability and for reform. And with that, I bring to you the new sheriff of Broward County, Gregory Toney.
First of all, thank you all for being here. I'd like to thank Governor DeSantis for producing an opportunity for me to come back into Broward County and actually serve again in a public servant capacity. I put down a few notes, kind of speaking points, and you're going to learn very soon about me as your sheriff that I go off script, but I will maintain the same professionalism that a performed document would have. And so I would first start with this. I have been in the community for a long time. And one thing I've learned during my professional experiences here in law enforcement is that Broward Sheriff Office is a great organization, if not the finest that we can have in South Florida. During this transition period, I plan on meeting with many people as possible, as soon as possible, and will rely upon some of the information and content and expertise that is already in this facility. There's become this myth that there's not enough qualified people here, that there's not enough strong leaders here, and they are. But when you have leadership at the top, it's important to bring that type of quality and skills and expertise up so that it reduces your job and ensure that you're providing the public the best safety that's possible out there. Understand again and remember that the Sheriff's Office is comprised of roughly 5,000 employees and roughly 3,000 deputies, almost exclusively made up of the most decorated and brave and unselfish individuals you will ever meet. I have served with many of these men and women during my law enforcement career, and they are not self-serving. They have the community interest at their heart, as do I. And so, to the employees and deputies now under my command, I understand you have concerns about the transition period. I can only provide the immediate comfort of saying this. I am not here for any type of political, grandiose, or agenda. I'm here to serve. I'm here to provide you with the best leadership that I can provide, as well as with any type of expertise and training agendas and any other equipment elements that's been lacking here. It's coming your way. To the community stakeholders, those who in attendance, those that are watching, you have voted and expressed the right to select your Broward County Sheriff. So I also understand that there may be some concerns there. And so to you, I say this. I have served you once before, oftentimes in the dark, away from the public light, simply doing my job to enforce the laws of this great state. I'm here to continue that mission under the capacity of sheriff by ensuring you and our deputies have the leadership that they deserve. Thank you very much.
Happy to take some questions.
What specifically did Sheriff Israel do that you issued this bill? What did or didn't he do that you issued this bill?
Well, we lay it out in the suspension order, and as I said, I don't have the inclination to want to rehash his failings. We put it there. He'll have his chance if he wants to plead his case before the Florida Senate to do that. I imagine that a majority of the senators are probably going to be of the mind of me and the families that are standing behind me. I think the important thing is this is a new day. It's a chance to take a step forward. It's a chance to address the shortcomings that many of these families have been asking to be addressed for an awful long time. And I think he will be able to get it done.
Governor, when did you make up your mind?
Well, if the families come to me, and Andy, you know where my office is. I know you're up there. I'm certainly willing to listen to that. I can tell you, in that report, there were obviously security failures. There were failures with law enforcement, but there were some really egregious failures with the school district. So I'm willing to listen to the families about what they may think is best for that.
Sorry, when did you make up your mind that you would Sheriff?
I mean, I think it was just going through that report, being briefed on the report, and this was not something where this guy just came out of the blue. The interactions, I just think there was neglect, there was incompetence, and how that was dealt with time and time again. And I wanted accountability, but I was also mindful that this happened in February. And we had all this time where nothing was necessarily done, and I wanted to take into account that and see whatever else happened between now and then. I obviously wanted to talk to families and make sure they were of a certain mind. But once I took that oath and put my hand on the Bible, I knew that oath compelled me to make this decision today.
Sir, Governor, do you have the authority under the Constitution, the state Constitution, to suspend an appointed superintendent of schools?
I think that is I don't know that, to be honest. I know for sure I can do an elected superintendent, and I did do the Okaloosa County superintendent of schools today. We suspended her, replaced her with somebody that I think will do a much better job. So I don't know that, and that would obviously be something that I would want to make sure I had the authority to do.
How about the FBI accountability, sir? How just that?
Well, I was a U.S. congressman when this happened, and Andy can tell you he came up, and the thing that was probably most frustrating to me is why wasn't anybody at the FBI fired when this happened? You had a tip that came in 2017 about this guy. He was on the radar, he's in the system, and then in January of 2018, you get one of the best, most thorough tips that you could possibly get. They actually matched this individual to the previous complaint. They didn't pick up the phone and call anyone down here, the field office, the sheriff's department. They did nothing. It was a complete dereliction of duty, and yet, months and months later, when I have Andy up there, they wouldn't even meet with us. They wouldn't meet with Andy at first until we put pressure. And to this day, I'm not sure that they've been held accountable. I know they were reassigned somewhere else, but to me, that's a bureaucratic two-step. You never fire anyone, you just pass the problem off to some other part of the bureaucracy. It's unacceptable, and I think how the FBI handled this was a disgrace. And if you at least fire the people who could have acted and didn't, we would actually at least be able to say, okay, at least there's accountability, but there's been none. Obviously, as governor, I don't have the authority to do that, but as a congressman, I was very insistent that that happened. Well, so the Promise program is a federal program, and it was something that is, I think, recently been addressed by the Secretary of Education nationally. I can tell you in Florida, I'm willing to use whatever we can in terms of money to insist that all school districts are protecting their students and the broader public. And I'm somebody that doesn't want kids make mistakes. If you make an innocent mistake, I don't want you to be scarred for life. But if you're somebody who's a danger, you can't just put your head in the sand and act like and just hope that nothing happens. And I think the most frustrating thing about that report, and even in the aftermath of this, you could walk up to anyone in that school and they all would have said it was this guy. Everyone knew, and people just weren't really willing to drop the hammer. And so I want to make sure people are held accountable and that the public isn't left at risk due to programs that are more based on social experimentation.
We have time for one more question. One more question.
Excuse me?
What is it you saw that Governor Scott didn't see to take this action?
Well, you'll have to ask Governor Scott. I mean, I have to look at everything in my own light and make the best decision I can. I mean, for example, the Okaloosa school superintendent that I suspended today, she was the subject of these scathing grand jury reports. The grand jury said that they recommended the Commissioner of Education process this and recommend action, and I'm not aware that that was ever even done. So I instructed my Commissioner of Education to look at it and let me know what should we be doing here. And then his recommendation was to suspend her, so I did. I just think it's my responsibility if children are at risk like they were in Okaloosa, and that's been documented, that clearly satisfies the statute, and I have to act and act accordingly. And so that's what I did there, and that's what I'm going to do in all these. And this is not has nothing to do with partisan politics. As liberal as Broward and Okaloosa is way more conservative and had big margin. She was a Republican. Scott Israel's a Democrat. We're just trying to get good people in there to protect the public. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.